So here we are, Tim and I, on our
I'm Tim.
7-year
Sarah.
anniversary of meeting each other
Today.
today, 7 years ago
And I was
today.
consciously looking
And I was
for
consciously
you.
looking for you.
Yeah, you came back from being away because you heard
I was in,
intuitively
yeah,
or whatever you want to call it, that you needed to go back for community. And I'd been looking for you because Sharon had been diagnosed with cancer and we were a few years into that already. So I was looking for the next person that was going to help me actually
yeah, I think
scale.
you were less than a year into Sharon's cancer journey. But yeah, we were looking for each other and we found each other in a faux soup restaurant
And I
on the
recognized you
spring
immediately.
on the spring equinox. And came over to our table and you said, thank you for inspiring everything I've written, because he was the only other person in the restaurant just writing in his journal feverishly. And I was looking at you often because I was facing you on the table just beside us and with the person that I was with. And I thought, you don't see that often, like a man of your age journaling, well, just any man journaling in a faux restaurant. So it really stood out to me. And then when you came over as you were leaving and said, you really inspired all of this, we both invited you, like, sit
Yeah.
down. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so
And
we
I,
had an hour and a half conversation that night at the restaurant, and we had so many things that were extremely aligned. And like I said, I was in Costa Rica thinking I would stay there indefinitely. I had nothing to come back for except for my intuition brought me back. I heard a very strong message that I was to go back for community, and I had grown a large network and my life came crashing down before I had gone to Costa Rica. So when I came back, I had a lot of passion to get going again and to just dust myself off and go. So I was looking for somebody who I felt would be instrumental at the foundation of this network. And it was you and Sharon, and you were looking for someone who had broadcast and
yeah,
social media
social
expertise to
media for
help get
sure. Marketing.
amplify your
Yeah.
message.
Yeah.
So
Market telling.
yeah, market telling was birthed very soon after, because our whole philosophy about life, how life works and how business works and doesn't work, was extremely aligned. And were surrendered to, like, this is not on our time, although not all, we weren't always surrendered. There was,
Well, no, because there was a massive amount of pressure with Sharon being ill with cancer.
yeah,
So for
and
me,
needing to make money.
I wasn't, I wasn't particularly grounded all the time,
Mm.
but
But I was coming in strong of, like, okay, I've failed in the past. My body was so depleted, and I was at a place of surrender where my body wouldn't let me have the energy of being pushed forward. So sometimes you come with that energy and I would just say, my body will not let me.
which is where I'm at now,
Yeah. So funny. Yeah.
feeling a little bit stronger, like a little bit more capacity, but it's been, it's been a momentous 7 years to say the least.
It really
And here
has.
we are on, the west, like as far from Ontario you can go without having to splash in the water going west.
Yeah. Yeah. And floating on the ocean has been such a nurturing
Yeah.
environment to bring me, at least, to this place of readiness to reemerge with Flow Network, and to also appreciate where you're at. Not to say, like, come on, Tim, let's go, but no, like, please be that grounding. Like, your plate right now is completely empty. Like, you're sitting in that
Yeah.
emptiness and that container that is holding such a big space for me to flow, just being that sort of divine masculine energy.
At a time, I mean, I'll add, because it surprises me like crazy, how turbulent my inner world is. And,
Now.
has been for the last, year or two.
Mhm.
I'm thinking, I'm just being here, but itself is changing so dramatically, so quickly. It's 2026, a big, big, big shift in a year's time.
Mhm.
And it's already all over the place. And the orientation to business and success and life and that kind of stuff is changing as well, from a man run and first
Mhm.
push orientation to more of a yin. And I have yin in me, yang and yin, you have yang and yin. I just love your breakthrough insights. You're just profoundly amazing as to how to distinguish what it is to be yang centric in a business, and then you bringing in what it is to be more yin centric in a
Mhm.
business. I freaking think it's brilliant.
Yeah, and it's literally like 180-degree
So it's totally the opposite.
difference. And I think that because we've been in the years past, energy, the density, things moved slower. Manifestation was slower. The words are words, cast spells that create our reality, whether we're conscious of them or like we always talk about and everybody knows, 90% is unconscious, and the unconscious is actually more powerful than what we consciously say. So what's that projecting out into our world in terms of what we're creating and co-creating, and we're seeing the results of that right now with the instability, the chaos, the wars, injustice, the seeming lack of resources. Like I just heard somebody, a notable figure, a trustworthy figure, share that they're going to Iran, for oil, but it's not just oil; they're going for water. And so the grasping of resources
Yep.
for
And the
for like the agendas and
even Greenland, the same kind of thing
yeah,
going on in Greenland.
for land and so all of the limiting beliefs and the lack structures that have been the foundation of the patriarchy are crumbling, they're not working anymore. And
It's freaking them out.
the yin leaders though have been quietly like seeing all this and are starting to rise and have all these structures and amazing wisdom bringing forward to create this new world. And a lot of the people that are, going down, hands clenched to the way that they've done things, won't even recognize that this new world is coming up, and that won't even recognize that the old world's going down. So it is just, it's an exciting time for people who are aware that there is something new being reborn. And we're
Time
and a
for
terrifying
the
time
vast majority of people
for the
on the planet.
majority that are kind of focusing on the old world going down. And the conversation we always have is new beginnings start with letting go. So
Yeah,
we
new
have to
beginnings start with
literally
letting go.
let go of
Yeah.
the old ways of doing things and be able to embrace a completely new way of doing things, which is moving slower, listening
Yeah.
and going inside and feeling the
The shit.
turbulence. Like not everyone, but a lot of people are at war with themselves.
Yes.
And
That's
there's
a
a
great
turbulence.
scenarios we see out there really happening in every human being on the
Well,
planet.
that's
And it's
like
happening in here.
exactly. Everything is a mirror. Everything out there in our world is a mirror. So we're seeing war out there. Okay, how is that happening inside myself? Like the simplest one is my Mac computer was completely full, was max to capacity. And I'm at this point in my life immediately, okay, where am I maxed in capacity in my life? Or like, where am I still holding on to old files that aren't serving anymore? So
Beliefs, old systems,
old
old
systems, old
expectations.
structures,
Yeah.
old, and then instead of like I was thinking about this, like some people might say, well, why would you bother, trying to figure out how to fix your Mac? Like just send it to somebody and let them deal with it. Well, then I would have lost this moment of my life. Like this is a threshold moment of my life to pause and to listen and to sit with my computer and sit with the memories and sit and actually delete the things myself and also learn how to use my computer better so that this doesn't happen again, where when I'm in a creative flow, I get a strong block. And it was such a gift to have that block because it slowed me down. And now we're having this beautiful conversation about capacity-based leadership because, the capacity of my MacBook. So it's a great time for us to look at the wars and the injustice going on in the world and say, okay, let's pause and listen. Like, how am I contributing to this? And most people don't want to go inside and feel the turbulence. Like, how many years you said, for the last whole year, you've been sitting with a lot of the inner turbulence.
Oh my God, yeah. And way, 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 way more disturbing than I would have ever guessed. So I found myself doing the best I could to not complain. And so then I'm making up new words. The new word is neutrality now for me. This is how you feeling today. This is neutral. I'm not attaching to anything. And that actually really helps because then I don't actually create this scaffolding inside that says, oh God, I feel so heavy. I got to lie down. Exactly. I'm exhausted.
Because
woe is me.
Yeah. Because you're projecting those words out there and you're going to keep yourself in that loop.
Totally.
Yeah. So that's just such an important thing. And that I also was doing that inner work in that turbulence for a lot of years in the past 7 years. And just being with that and then, doing my best not to get sucked down that. But neutrality is that path of just saying, okay, surrender to the inner turbulence. It will not be that way forever. This too shall pass. And it's literally allowing everything to come up, listening to it, not trying to fix it, like not looking for quick solutions to numb it out. And we've numbed out, most of us have numbed out all of this for generations. And so
Yeah.
this is a time where like, hey, it's in our fascia.
Fascia, it's in our bones. So it's pretty hard to miss if you're being in, if I'm not being in my body, then I can miss it. If I'm in my body, I can certainly feel it unwinding as things move faster and faster. And then the dupe, the density under pressure effect is for me way bigger than I would ever have guessed
Yeah.
just
I
even a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I think that's the density under pressure effect, the dupe that we call, is something that is initiated as soon as you stretch for something that you want in life, whether that's love, whether that's going for a dream, going for a business, moving to your dream location, or whatever it is that causes you to stretch outside of where you've been. You instantly activate the dupe, the density under pressure effect, which is that when you stretch for something you want, you unearth all the shame, the guilt, the lower density emotions, the bottom, that haven't been addressed in order to hold the capacity to sustain that trajectory of growth. So this is what we've been going through because we had a
And we've been
big
talking about this
this is what
from the beginning.
from
We
beginning,
met
this is what we
7 years ago.
which is why we have done the long-term vision because this isn't a quick fix and build. But with the vertical growth, or like when we first started and first met, we were in a tech space doing what's your capacity for success workshops. And that was all about, an incubator and accelerators and just growing as quickly as you can so that you can turn it around, sell the company, and
Fast.
exit.
Fast. The only way you can do that is
Right.
push, which is the only way to do that is overcome
So,
overwhelm
right.
by pushing even harder.
It's literally a recipe for blowing up your life, basically,
Yeah.
because you're stretching, but you're not dealing with the stuff at the bottom. So there's going to come a time when you're going to have to collapse into that because as nature and living systems work, if you're not looking at the whole system and you're just looking and focusing on, I was talking to Deidre yesterday about the toxic positivity, and you're just looking up
Yeah.
or you're just looking out and you're denying what's really going on inside, that's just not going to work anymore at all.
Can I just even say just one
Yeah.
thing to that is that because we've been sold as dupe, we've been sold the idea is the way to do is to actually go faster, accelerate. And those people came in with the seed ideas for tech.
Yeah.
For the most part, they did not make the big money. The money was made by the investor to just keep on actually throwing money at it and then selling it, throwing money, selling it, manipulating the whole thing. So it's a system that never worked. And we were right in the heart of that downtown Toronto and talking about this phenomena and starting to build up all kinds of people coming and watching us. And then all of a sudden we had COVID.
Yeah, which was
What a journey.
such a journey, and it was our journey of going in. I think the whole planet was forced to go within because we were all isolated and whatnot. And some of us did that inner work, and some of us carried on as like, when's life going to go back to normal?
Yeah.
When there is no normal anymore moving forward. The game is totally changed. It's about creating the kind of spaciousness that allows your work to move cleanly, powerfully, and without friction. So the translation of all this is the capacity-based leadership is not how much you can do, but how much space you can hold.
Which is the precursor to the name that we actually came up years ago saying incubators and accelerators. That's just actually getting people to just smash and burn and everything else. What we need is a transformer.
Yeah.
So we transform ourselves and we transform how and who bit. That is not a short path.
No.
That requires a whole pile of work, which I've done most of my life and we've done together with clients. And then we kind of settled into, okay, let's actually just do our own personal work inside to fill up capacity and transform ourselves through that process. Here's 7 years, which feels so exciting. Oh my gosh. It is.
But the funniest metaphor is that because I spend a lot of time editing, I just don't know how to, I am great at editing, but I'm not a master of the tech systems. And so I could use some learning, which I have learned now, that there's a place to clear rendered files. And the metaphor of these rendered files is that they're not the essence, they're not the actual file, they're just these processes that make the file play more smoothly because it's such a large file. but they're regeneratable and they're not the real thing. And they take up the most amount of space. Such a great metaphor. So it was like, okay, what
That's the name of the
illusions am
person.
I still holding on to that are taking up space in my life? So it had me really reflect on some stories that I'm still attached to of the old version of me. And so anyways, I went into the menu, got help from GPT how to do that, which was super simple. Hit a couple buttons, boom, 100 gigs cleared up. It took me hours to clear 10 gigabytes and it took seconds to clear 100 gigabytes.
And I remember, I mean, because I've seen you through this, working for hours trying to clean this, clean that, clean this, and you'd be exhausted after it
Yeah.
because you got to, like, you just have to
Well,
engage with it in a
I've
certain way.
yeah, and it's still like I'm not saying, oh, I shouldn't have deleted, I shouldn't have spent all those hours deleting those 10 gigs because I believe there was something powerful in going through
Yes,
old content and
exactly.
deleting that stuff.
Yeah.
And but also touching on those moments of who I was and what I've been through and what I've learned and just honoring that process by looking at it and reflecting on it.
Yeah.
But it is exhausting because it's energetic, a lot of energetic work over years. And just like weaving and bringing love to my past and all the just energetic
Yeah.
work that I do
Yeah.
when
It's
I'm
a lot.
yeah, it is a lot. So it's been an extremely powerful and important time. And yeah, it's just to bring this conversation back to the fore that we used to have these conversations in the early days. Like I remember the chart you drew on a
Literally,
napkin
literally.
at a restaurant
Yeah.
of like, what was it? The content, context,
So
content,
context,
conditions, context,
text, capacity.
capacity.
So it's boxes within boxes. The smallest box is content. The biggest box is capacity. And the way you actually get to capacity is on that journey,
Right.
which again was just an intuitive thing way back when and just observing going on. And it's literally
Yeah.
what you're dealing with.
If we look at like social media through the lens of social media of like, okay, content, like when I first got on in 2016, when social media first started having videos, like, oh, I'm making content. Like that's awesome. And the likes of Gary V were like saying content is king. And it's like, okay, well, what are the conditions with which you're making that?
Which is hilarious because I mean, I studied that quite a bit for years because corporate and big organizations says, no, we have to create the conditions where people feel safe to share the stuff that's maybe not that, pleasant to share with other people. Well, it was such a crazy, because I was involved with that and involved with trying to help corporate business in particular say, to each other, I really don't like when you say that, as opposed to, I want to kill you. And if you keep on doing that, but never could you ever get down to the real roots of the issue because people weren't allowed at that point in time, and not that long, they weren't allowed to actually be honest.
I'm thinking of it through the conditions through the lens of like what I was saying about hiring a team. Like if I create the conditions where I
Right.
have someone who can
Right.
help me, cut up my long form video into little bite-sized pieces, then I can create thousands of clips of content. And if I have these teams doing that, it's like, okay, but what is the content? Is it really aligned with your biggest mission?
Especially because the problem is the content, you have to interface with people who actually then are maxed, get frustrated. You
Right.
own their frustrated through oops.
Or you don't even engage with
Yeah.
the people who are connecting to your content and you have bots or other people
Yeah.
outside of like your culture who are like responding to these comments.
Yeah. So the
So
frequency
you're not
changes
even
dramatically.
you're not even engaged or aware with like what's feedback you're getting. So then content, conditions,
Text.
text.
So you got to go context. So in this situation, you do this. In this other situation, you do this other thing. So the context is what actually informs how to behave. If in fact there's more love or trust, and okay, it's appropriate to talk about this. If there's not a lot of love and trust in your relationship, don't go in talking about the stuff that really pisses you off about the other person or whatever. So there was this sensitivity, through whatever era that was. That was a couple of years ago as well, probably still is something that's going on right now to try and actually figure out, let's actually paint the picture. What's the context? And right now the context is the world is going crazy. And if you don't understand, how that actually is happening and why it's happening, and you're not actually engage with understanding where's my role in that, context becomes really important because you have to step back and say, well, who's actually telling this? Is it the news? Is it government? Or is it really happening on the ground? And we can't get on the ground all over the place. So we're just kind of making a guess.
Yeah.
But that helps because it sets context saying, I think maybe we're getting duped.
Yeah, the context of like the news. It's like,
Yes.
wait, is this news? Is this really the truth of
Can
what's
I
going on?
trust this?
Yeah. What is the context for what you're sharing? Do you have an agenda that you're trying to push and program and feed into people? Yeah, I also think of for my own life within the context of learning that I'm a projector. So
Yeah. Wow.
when I first started sharing content, I
As a
don't as
projector.
a projector, like also sharing super vulnerable stuff to an audience in a way that wasn't really aligned to my being. And so
Not good for you.
and not good for me at all.
No.
And
Yeah.
so the context of like my wiring, like who am I uniquely and what context am I creating for that with which I am creating the conditions to then share content. And
then if you honor the contextual situations that you need as a projector, and not just as a projector, because there's different kinds of projectors.
yes.
You're a mental projector, so
Yes.
you need a context that's like this. That's how you can access your capacity.
Mhm.
And ultimately, at capacity, frequency, bandwidth, whatever you want to call it, that's the path. Well, that's a bit of a go
Yeah.
to get through all those steps and stages
Yeah.
and make sure you're sequencing it correctly, which again, I didn't really appreciate because I'm wired in a certain way that's unique. I didn't appreciate that other people couldn't actually see what I could see really clearly. So I did a terrible job of explaining it at the early years,
Yeah.
thinking this is just so obvious. What are you talking about? Get to the point, Tim.
Yeah. I think that's such the thing that, in human design, Roth talks about how
Yeah.
we've been of like an addiction to homogenization and just our education system and how we think
One
about
way.
ourselves is
Yeah.
like that we're all kind of the same.
Yeah.
And we mix the context of like, no, we're all very unique beings.
If you're using a push system, you can get away with that.
Well, more than which is how we've all been conditioned.
Yeah.
There's the conditions. We've been conditioned to work in a system that is just a cog in a wheel pushing us down the line. And so Flow Network being a big part of my vision with Flow Network was to give context to content and context in terms of story and mapping.
Yes. Storytelling.
And weaving different communities together that offer a higher context or a higher vision
That's relatable
to
being the
every
key.
and context that keeps individuals sovereign versus codependent within an ecosystem, which is also the conditions that we have been programmed or nurtured into.
And stuck in.
And stuck in
the box.
Stuck in a box for a long time. What a juicy conversation. So let's go with capacity now. We've got back to the
capacity.
capacity.
Is what we call bandwidth. It's frequency. It's the capacity to accommodate the wonderful stuff at the top. Oh my gosh, this is wonderful. And then this denser stuff at the bottom, like shame and guilt and how that actually, how we experience that. And then be more gentle with yourself. You're more likely to be that way if you've allowed yourself to go through these phases and start to look at making sure you're looking at the conditions correctly. And they're actually putting things in place and safety in place, routines for, reflection and all those kinds of things. Because if you actually haven't got the right conditions, it sure is not going to get the right context. And you're sure not ever going to be able to feel safe with the capacity. And you and I have big capacity because we've been working literally on our personal and then partnership capacity for 7 years, consciously working with that. This works, this doesn't work. This works, this doesn't work. So when we get together for a meeting now, which is just the start of that again, which is really, we haven't done a lot of it, but I get fired up like crazy because this is so my frigging dance to actually watch what you're doing and what you're doing with the human garage orientation. Just, oh my God, it's so exciting because we can actually see in terms of the leadership within that offering so what's the conditions that they're actually putting in? What are the contexts they're actually introducing? And then how's that actually affecting capacity in women? And how's that affecting capacity in men? Well, it's going to be totally different if you don't consider both ends of it.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna bring in Human Garage with capacity because a big part I believe that has helped us in this particular phase in terms of coming to this place of emergence is the capacity within our fascia
Yeah.
system and our nervous
Yeah.
system. Like we were always into, our nervous system being the main holder of our capacity. And when you're going through the inner turbulence, having a disciplined practice like fascial maneuvers to literally help rewire the capacity in your body and to let go of old programs and let to go of shame and to manage the fear, because big part of this switch of leadership is not about how much can we do, but what is the capacity with which we can have energy flow through us.
Effortlessly.
And the energy on the planet that is very much in a state of chaos and will continue to be as we let go of the old, hopefully, and embrace the new is we're all connected, and there's a heightened fear, there's heightened anger, there's a lot of the pinky stuff that we have not deleted. A lot
Yes.
of
As a
the
species.
rendered
Yeah.
files have not been deleted.
Exactly.
And so we're going to hit a wall. In other words, you're going to be blocked from flowing until we delete these files of lower density emotions of the past, not just of our own personal lives, but of our ancestors from generations that are still in our DNA.
A little
Richard
bit.
Rudd speaks about
Yeah.
in the gene keys. So I love bringing the gene keys and bringing Human Garage and other systems that address our capacity, which is the context is we have in our bodies a supercomputer system, and we've been passing viruses, we've been passing corrupted DNA
Detail data. Yeah.
and data for generations, and we can either be victims to that, or we can say, okay, the buck stops here. I'm going to deal with this. I'm going to spend the hours or
So
the
deja
years.
vu.
I know.
The buck
The
stops
buck
here.
stops here. I'm going to spend the hours or the years to start deleting and cleaning up these files.
Yeah.
And so systems like gene keys help us identify where that corruption is within us. And then the fascial maneuvers help us to literally get that stuck density that's housed in our fascia broken up so that it can flow out of our bodies, which doesn't always feel comfortable.
Yeah. And then also there's other skill sets passed along by ancient, I think of the Maharishi and my
Yeah, your
mentor
mentor,
who
Fred,
Fred, who passed right after a year after Sharon
Sharon
passed.
passed.
He introduced me to all kinds of skills and practices to be able to go and help with the density. So that's kind of cool that it's all just coming in layered and having been sat with this, which has been very uncomfortable at times for 7 years, to be able to actually feel it coming out sequentially and both of us talking and talking and finishing each other's sentences and going, yeah, that's how it works. We're both totally on the same page in terms of the sequence of it. Damn.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
layering on so many things of like
Yeah.
just thinking of like you came in with Fred and the presence and the different
Yeah.
disciplines
Yeah.
from the Maharishi and your
Chia as
mentor
well.
Chia
Yeah.
and Shiatsu, and then I came in with like my yoga and Reiki and color psychology and quantum sound and using those and then just adding to our tool belt, and all of that understanding of the investment in our capacity is where we need to look first holistically,
Totally.
and then let the capacity inform the context that informs the conditions that informs the content.
Yeah. Which is a totally different way of looking at. I would just go on
I know.
forever because it's something that has
How
been
much time do we
a
have?
barrier to in myself and everybody I've ever met in my whole, and still do to this point. I mean, because when working with it, you can actually read where a person's at and say, okay, I can go with that, but I'm not going to actually take that as literal because it's not going to work for me. Might work for you, but it's not going to work for me because I'll end up having to push just like you end up having to push, and I'm not interested in
And
that.
that's where social media is with just so much content,
Yeah.
with no context,
Yeah.
and firing these like bite-sized pieces of advice to people they feel are just, or we've been conditioned to believe are homogenized, and there's like this one size
the
fits
same.
all.
Yeah.
And it's like overwhelming now because there's literally opposing ideas, or you could literally go search and have your opinion be either supported or completely crapped on. So the content is like, okay, there's enough, but there's a fire hose, it's overwhelming, and I believe people are going to be looking more for context, which is why Flow Network exists. And
to actually build something called capacity that they may or may not even understand is really at it's the root,
yeah,
it's the base, it's the everything,
yeah.
because
And
we are
when people
capacity driven or not
yeah,
driven.
exactly. And when people come together with strong, a similar context, and they're aligned in their context, and they can be diverse, and that's actually the strength of an ecosystem is its diversity. Can be as diverse as we want to be, but if we're aligned in a context of we're here building something new for the future generations, because what was is no longer working. And if we can be aligned on that context, that builds an even stronger capacity in numbers.
And the
Yeah.
thing is 2027 and forward, the context, the way we interpret the context is going to be entirely and absolutely, totally out of this world. And if you haven't actually dealt with the sequencing that we're sharing, then my God, like trying to get unraveled from that, like I just don't. I mean, I'm very open to the fact that there's going to be all kinds of people, solutions and ways to do this, but understanding that capacity is what everyone is going to need. And most people are going to have to actually go inside and start to let go of a lot of the density.
Mhm.
And, there's a fair amount of people on the planet that don't even know what that means, let alone the leadership who.
Yeah.
So it's an exciting time. And here we are,
7 years,
years to
7 year
the day
cycle
on the solstice,
in the spring equinox.
right? Which is also a pretty powerful thing. I don't know what.
And we just came through a powerful new moon as well, where I planted seeds with Deidre, who is an educator, and I was feeling Sharon through her and the work that she's doing, and wanted
Yeah,
to
the
make
education
change.
system.
Because again,
Ooh.
the capacity, like she said, it's not a teacher shortage; it's a teacher exodus, because they do not have the capacity to be able to deal with the lack of capacity that we just have reached our max in terms of
The
nervous
kids are
system.
actually mirroring the lack of capacity in their parents and then the system and then their networks and their whole village, the communities, whatever.
Yeah.
So the poor kids are actually the ones who are suffering the most, and they're trying to normalize that suffering the best they can.
Or
Because
numb it, continue to
yeah,
numb it in the children. And
right. So then we have a whole society walking around as numb, not at all feeling zombies. So you get
zombies, yeah, it's just, it's a
which we're likely to see more of that.
it's a fork in the road, big time. I know a lot of people are talking about that, and so, yeah.
It's so funny. I can easily say 7 years ago, 14, 21 years ago,
Yeah.
I saw a fork in the road.
You
Finally,
actually
we're at the significant point where it's 2027 forward, you're just not going to be able to, like, there's
Yeah.
just no way you can deny that we've now
Yeah.
forked.
Yeah, Richard Rudd calls it this year, 2026, the year of the closing door.
Yeah, the whole way things were worked and the mechanics of manifestation
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
performance is just totally, absolutely
I sense that,
upside down.
like you and Sharon, you were doing this very early, 30 plus years ago,
Yeah.
talking about this, seeing the closing door, thinking it's just,
Yeah, I
a
did. We
year
didn't know
away
how
or
far
another
away
year
it
away.
was.
And then, like me as well, 10 years
And
ago.
lots of people thought we were nuts,
Yeah.
just to go on record.
And me too. And so what I was going to say is that I think probably people watching this will resonate with that. Like, you probably sensed this closing door, whatever metaphor you were using, but you were definitely felt ahead of your time, and the time is now.
Well, the unfortunate thing is that I was always wishing that we finally, come on, give me some substance and some examples for people to be able to go and say, like, this is actually totally, absolutely transformational. Up is down, down is up, inside out, the whole bit. And now that we're actually right on the edge, I feel things that I just never would have guessed before, because I was so excited to finally get there so that I could actually help people see it and then be experiencing it to go, oh, I get what you're talking about. Now, when I look at it and I see what's actually likely to take place, as Richard Rudd says, like, it's just going to be it's just going to be so unbelievably challenging for people if it's the first time they've ever actually had this jolt inside. What do you do with that? Well, usually what we do with it is we panic, fight, flight, freeze, amygdala just gets locked. You're going around as a zombie. It's all the stuff I've been talking about, but I thought it was just going to be a slow thing that would happen and people would go, "Oh, Tim, there you are. Yeah, I've been working on this for 14 years, like you said, and here I am in a better place." It's not gonna, that'll be so rare to run into somebody way back when that said, "Yeah, I've been taking your advice and I'm feeling like you. Yeah, this is good." Because why would you if you don't have to?
Yeah, if you don't feel the door closing, then there's
So
no
there's
reason
no
to make the
urgency.
change and the urgency, but I feel and I can see and sense around me that many people are hitting that wall. And so this network, a part of this network was built to be a beacon
Yeah.
for others to see that there is a new world being born. There's who have the
Yeah.
capacity to hold the space for all of this change that's going to occur. And so, yeah, we're in our time now of looking for others who resonate with this, whether you're a leader who has a big following and you want to be a part of the bigger story of somebody weaving all of this, together, or whether you simply want to follow along and just witness the unfolding. You don't know how this is going to unfold. Nobody does.
I used to
Documenting.
think I did, but now I go totally say there's just no possible way to actually identify how this is going to happen, except that it's going to happen.
It is happening.
Yeah, it is happening.
So if you want to stick around and read what my GPT had to share with me about capacity and my own personal journey, then I'll make a separate video for that. But for now, thanks for celebrating 7 years since Tim and I met.
Yay, big hug, 7 years.
Yep. And I think we're going to go have some faux soup to honor our meeting spot.
Yes, that's just the start of the celebration.
Just
We're
the
gonna have
start.
balloons.
We're going to go to Salt Spring Island.
Oh, it's going to be kooky.
It's going to be awesome.
As the sun shines in.
I know. All right. Plover and out.